Happy Sunday, listeners. It's Siera London and Michele Ingrid, and we're back for another episode of Women on Words. Hi, Michele. How you doing?
Hey, happy Sunday. Happy Women on Words Day.
Yes, all of that. And our other co-host, Jackie Renee, unfortunately, she's not able to join us today because she has a sick child at home. But Jackie, we are thinking about you and we're missing you, and be sure to give us an update. So it's the third Sunday of the month, so it's time for a book chat. And this month we read The X Talk by debut author Rachel Lynn Solomon. No, she's not debut. She writes YA too. Okay, sorry, y'all. Take that back. Okay, so look at it, just talking. Okay, but I want to read the back cover and then we're going to jump right into the discussion. All right, so here we go. Public radio hosts navigate mixed signals in Rachel Lynn Solomon's sparkling romantic comedy debut. See, I knew I saw the word debut somewhere. Shay Goldstein has been a producer at her Seattle public radio station for nearly a decade, and she can't imagine working anywhere else. But lately, it's been a constant clash between her and her newest colleague, Dominic Yoon,
Hmm.
who's fresh off a journalism master's program.
He let you know that a lot.
Yes, and convinced he knows everything about public radio. When
Hmm.
the struggling station needs a new concept, Shay proposes a show that her boss green lights with excitement. On the X Talk, two exes will deliver relationship advice live on air. Their boss decides Shay and Dominic are the perfect co hosts, given how much they already despise each other. Neither loves the idea of lying to listeners, but it's this or unemployment. Okay. Their audience gets invested fast, and it's not long before the X Talk becomes a must listen to Seattle, must listen in Seattle, and climbs the podcast charts. As the show gets bigger, so does their deception, especially when Shay and Dominic start to fall for each other. In an industry that values truth, getting caught could mean the end of more than just their careers. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just going to
Oh,
start by saying I absolutely love the concept of this book.
yeah.
The
Yeah.
concept of having to pretend that you've been in a relationship with someone that you really don't like, and that you're
Yeah.
giving advice on it, and then you really start to fall for each other. I it's a brilliant idea, just a brilliant book idea. And I thought
Hmm.
that Rachel, actually, the way she tells the story, I mean, she's talented with words, y'all. I have to give
Yes.
it to her. Like the scenes are so vivid and it's so visceral, even though it's only told from one character's point of view, and I got some words
Yes.
on that.
Loved it back.
uh
Oh, it can be
yes,
done. It can be done.
yes. So Michele, what were your initial thoughts on just the story idea as a whole?
I loved it. Number one, it's interesting because I related. I think I said to you earlier, I related to this book a lot because I come from a background in nonprofit television.
Mhm.
And so, in that respect, I understood the whole idea of this, having not just a job, but a mission. And then the
Mhm.
other part of it that I really enjoyed was the fact that this mission and this role that she takes on comes very much from like her upbringing, um, her childhood relationship with her father. And that was really strong. And you got that a lot. Like I really connected with Shay. I liked her and I could
Mhm.
see where she was coming from. I could see the drivers behind that character. So I
Yeah.
connected with her a lot. And so my first impression of the story is I really enjoyed the story and I enjoyed getting to know these characters. They are very complex.
Yes, yes, they are. So
Yeah.
when the book opens, you meet Shay, and
Mhm.
Shay is a producer. So she's behind the
Mhm.
scenes, but she's
Mhm.
always wanted to be on the air. And so
Mm-hmm.
we meet her when somebody else is in the booth, like the room she normally uses.
Mm-hmm.
So, y'all, Shay is that hot shot in the workplace. She started working at
The
this job
youngin.
when she was 19 years old. And she's been there, a decade. So 10 years.
Years.
And guess what? She's not the shiny penny anymore. So Dominic comes on the scene and he has a master's degree that he is very proud of, that he loves to tell everybody on
Every
air.
day, every minute that he can.
He does. He does. And guess what? The boss takes notice of Dominic right away. And so Shay has a very comfortable podcast that she's been the producer of. And when the story opens,
Radio show.
Yes, the radio show. When the story opens, Dominic has some hot breaking news, and they want to interrupt Shay's regular programming for Dominic's hot breaking news. And Dominic is a bit of he's arrogant. He's arrogant for somebody new to the job. And what we learned right away is, y'all, Shay, the old lady in this book, she's 29 and Dominic is 25, which I thought was really interesting.
24, 25, yeah.
Yes, because you deal with some ageism like stuff in a couple that's 29 and 25. So, what did you think about that initial exchange when we meet Dominic and Shay, and you see this interaction where y'all is told in her POV and she's grumbling from the beginning. Like she don't like the way he always talks about his master's degree, how everything, if it's not like at the heart of journalism, groundbreaking stories, he is not okay. And all of that is beneath him. So you can only imagine with this storyline that's talking about exes, which they are not, how he's going to receive that. But Michelle,
I'm going to preface my answer by explaining, or rather reiterating, that
yes.
having worked in an environment very close to this one, I have met the Dominics of the world. I will
Mhm.
warn you, I've never fallen for a Dominic, because in the real world, a Dominic makes you want to put some of those cast iron pans that he likes to collect over his head, not
Yes.
not on the stovetop to make lunch together. So
Yes.
I will say that. I won't lie, I found Dominic annoying when the book opens, but I believe that's how I'm supposed to find him. So
Mhm.
um Miss Solomon did her job to the nth
Yes.
degree. Like, I could feel that rage that Shay feels while she's waiting to get into her booth. Her favorite booth. Everybody has a favorite booth. Anyone who's ever worked in television or radio doing behind the scenes cuts will tell you everybody has a favorite booth that works better than the other ones or just feels better.
Yeah.
um it's kind of like producers have their favorite studios. So yeah, I could get that whole rage of like, he knows this is my booth, he knows I had it scheduled, he knows this is where I work, and he's purposefully putting himself in there, like putting himself above the fray.
Yeah.
And I have to admit that Dominic gets a lot of special privileges as the new kid on the block, and also
Yeah.
as the new wonderkind guy on the block. And
He
I'm telling
does.
you very quietly that every woman in television or radio knows this story and has rolled
Mhm.
her eyes so much that her head hurt for a week when she
Yeah.
met the Dominic
Yeah.
and saw the way he's treated.
Yes. And I think a lot of women like this storyline, the way it opens, in that, you get a new guy in the office that, at least the way the book opens, there's a lot of women in this workplace.
There's a lot of women
Uh,
in that world.
Yes, and the new guy just rises to the top. Like he's been on the job, I want to say y'all a few months. It might be through, yeah, yeah, pushed to the top.
Lifted
And
to the
he's
top.
already getting his opportunity to be on the air. And
Mhm.
literally, he's been at the job a few months.
Because he's
So
fresh off of his
his master's
master's degree.
degree, yeah, from Northwestern.
Yes.
Yes, because that's important.
We don't remember this because we remember this. We remember this because Dominic tells us over and over and over again in the
Yes.
story.
Yes, he does.
Yes.
And then we find out that when the boss calls them in the office, and I think his name is Kevin.
Kent,
Kent, I'm sorry. Kent is worse than Dominic. But
misogynist
Kent,
piece of.
yes, but we find out that like so many spaces when you talk about public radio, public television, they're
Mm-hmm,
having some
mm-hmm.
financial struggles.
Yeah.
And so guess what? There are jobs to be lost and shows to be cut.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the show that our heroine leads, Shay, the Puget Sound, because they're in Seattle,
Mm-hmm.
and I've crossed the Puget Sound.
I
Um,
haven't.
yes, into Canada. Mia and Mr. Awesome took a trip for what, about 3 or 4 days. We were in Seattle traveling from Japan, and we took a train trip across the
Show
Puget
off.
Sound. I know.
That's all right.
We
I'm
had
not
a
holding it
great
against
time,
you.
but we find out that they need something new and fresh.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and Shay comes up with this idea, and
Girl.
Dominic immediately poo-poos it.
Yes. Now remind me, because I'm now trying to remember, did she come up with the idea of the exes or did she come up with the idea of a relationship show? I can't quite remember exactly how she formed it.
Yes, I believe it was the exes
Okay, so she actually came up with the
with the
full-on top.
idea.
Yeah,
I,
yeah. I know she
idea.
came up with the idea, but I can't remember if it was like fully formed yet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it was poo-pooed. It was
because
poo-pooed.
Dominic is a real newsman.
Yes, and of course this is beneath him.
Yes.
And Shay sees this, and what I love about her is even though she is a young woman, you find out early on she's lost her father. She lost her father when she was 18.
Mm-hmm.
Her dad had the perfect, what she calls, radio
Radio
voice.
voice.
And she believes that she might be like me and that she has a higher, kind of squeakier voice. And so she feels like, I don't have the voice for this, but this is the opportunity that I've been waiting for 10 years on this job.
Yeah, yeah.
And so she invites Dominic out. And we learned that Dominic is an interesting man in that socially,
He's in
he's
there.
relative. Yes, he is. And I thought it was interesting at a time where alpha males are so revered
He's
in
not that.
literature. He's not that. Tell me what you thought about that. Like encountering a guy who's very braggadocious about his academic pursuits and successes. But for the most part, he is the odd kid out.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I think that in general, Dominic represents a lot of people that we meet. Those people who that one thing they have going for them, they run with it because they don't feel good about the rest of it. And it's funny
Mhm.
because she has her own feelings about not being enough, and then we find
Yes.
out Dominic is heavy in those feelings of not being enough, even
Mhm.
while he's creating this you know position for himself as being sort of above the fray. He
Mhm.
does not want to take part in this show would require them to lie about a relationship, but
Mhm.
Dominic is kind of that character who is he's not strong in the sense of being 100% comfortable in who he is. And you
Mhm.
read that. Like at some point, we find out that Dominic has had exactly one major relationship, and it
Yeah.
shows. He
Yes.
is very much, he might be a wonderkind on the radio, but he's a child in his relationships. I
Yeah.
felt that way. And maybe I'm being unfair to him, but I thought, wow, you talk a lot of game for somebody with a very little bit of it. You
Yeah.
know?
Oh goodness. So I thought it was interesting to even craft a character who's 25 and he
Hmm.
never dated in high school. And he met his ex-girlfriend when he was in college. And I was like, what an interesting position for a male character to be so close to virginal in some ways. Like he's a, I don't want, oh, I'm probably saying this all
No,
wrong,
no, no, no,
but,
no, no,
but,
no. I like it.
but,
I like it. I like it. I love the
but
use of the
he,
word virginal for a guy in this situation. Yes,
but
I
he's
love to go
very
with
much
it.
a novice in the relationship department.
Girl, a real
And,
novice.
and, 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 and she crafts his backstory in a way that Dominic's first girlfriend, y'all, goes on vacation and gets in an accident.
Mm-hmm.
And Dominic basically moves in with her and her family while she's rehabilitating
And
and
takes care of
cares for
her.
her. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, wow. That's when I began to see a different side of a side of him beyond the master's degree.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be
Mm-hmm.
honest with you. I'm like, wow, what an interesting role for a kid, because he
He
was a kid
doesn't
at the time.
run. He doesn't run.
Yeah.
He jumps right in. And then later on, we find
Yes.
out that she was like, so I know you took care of me, but I kind of want to do something else,
Yeah, I'm all better
i.e.,
now.
I want
Bye
to do
bye.
other people,
Yes.
not you anymore. And I thought that was
Yes.
interesting that we got the feeling that he did it because he loved her,
Mm-hmm.
but we got the feeling that she was like, okay, that's great. Now I'm better and I kind of want to go back out there. And maybe she never intended it to be a long
Yes.
term relationship. So I did feel sorry for him. I don't want to use the word sorry for him. I did gain a greater understanding of
For
Dominic
him as a character.
because of the fact that he would be the kind of person that would do something like that for somebody else.
I
That's a
agree.
lot to risk at that age.
So I'll tell you, when I was listening, because I listened to the book on audio, I didn't read it
I
this
did both.
time. Okay. But I did think it was interesting that the author chose to give Dominic these like these characteristics where you have a young man, basically a man boy, um, who is literally taking care of a person he cares for,
Mm-hmm.
very young in his life.
Mm-hmm.
And the conversation that Dominic had with Shay about, I thought this was going to be the woman that I would marry. Like we had been together for all these years through college, like his undergraduate, like his all of his undergraduate years. They
Yeah.
met like at freshman orientation.
Yeah.
So they've been together all this time, and you literally helped to nurse this person back to health. And then they like, I thank you so much. You gave me a
You're
kidney. Now
such
I'm
a
gonna take
wonderful
it and go over
person.
here on this
Bye.
date with
Good. Bye-bye. Thank you
yes.
so
And
much.
so,
Bye.
and guess what? This is where I felt like it was a reversal in the roles, because you know what Shay asked him that was just profound to me? She asked him, so you proposed or you were gonna propose? He's like, no. Were you like kind of thinking about marriage? Well, no, not at the time, but, and that's often a position that female characters are put into, where they've been in a relationship, a long-term relationship, and they are projecting this future with long-term and marriage and proposal and all of this, and then the relationship ends. But this author chose to give it to the hero in this story, and I actually found that journey very interesting.
Yeah. So, it kind of reminded me of the hero in The Wedding Date, where he was like thinking that the girlfriend would be like the girl he broke up with would be waiting for him when he was ready to have a relationship.
Relationship,
But it's kind
yeah.
of like the newbie guy's version of that because he's assuming that they're going to end up together.
Hmm.
Um, it's funny because, we have these conversations about if somebody offers you help, the assumption is it's not your business whether or not they can afford to give you that help, whether or not they want to give you that help. You're just going to say, yes, thank you very much. And she does.
Right.
We find out that she does that. Um, but the other part of it is that Dominic rolls into town carrying himself like this guy who has a completely different life than the one that we expect him to have,
That
even
is
down to
true.
meeting his parents, where we're kind of like, at one point, okay, maybe we should explain to the audience that they do decide to do this fake radio show podcast where They pretend to have been exes, even though they've never dated, they've never spent time together, they do not
Mm-hmm.
know each other. They make the decision to do this show, but they have to lie about themselves. And then they have to like try to force themselves to learn about each other. And
Mm-hmm.
he kind of walks in with this swagger of, I'm that guy. And
Yes.
she's kind of walking into this whole thing where she's like, I've not really had a date in a really long time. And
Mm-hmm.
she's got more experience than him, but they don't come off that way on the radio.
Yes, I agree.
So
Um,
yeah, that's kind of
yeah.
interesting.
She at 29, she's the older woman in the
Hmm.
relationship, and she does have more relationship experience, but they've both been alone for a year. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
another thing that's very interesting about Shay and her interaction with Dominic before we even get on the air is you meet Shay in very different settings. So you meet her at work, and then you
Hmm.
go home and you found out that Shay's mom is engaged.
Yeah. Well,
Like
she
she gets
gets engaged.
engaged.
She
Right.
asks. So this is
Yes.
a whole different kind of woman. She
Yes.
proposes to her fiance.
Yes, she
Yeah.
does, which is interesting because Shay is not bold like her
No,
mom at
no,
all.
no.
Yes, and not only does Shay have kind of a unique career, but her mom is a violinist in the
Yeah.
Seattle Symphony, which I thought was
Yes.
just beautiful.
Hmm.
But yes, so her mom proposes to her Nigerian fiance. Is he Nigerian?
Yes, he is. And let's can we just go back and talk
Yeah.
about the fact that without being out there, this book has a level of diversity that matches the type of city it's set in. And that is extremely refreshing that it's
Mhm.
not a lift. It's just, the simple understanding that people who look and think and date and feel differently are in this world together, and they coexist in a sense that they do have to on any normal stage. And I really appreciated the fact that she pulled no punches. This was very much a diverse cast
Yes.
of characters, and you could kind of just feel very comfortable in the sense of, like, especially living in the New York or the Washington DC area, that's what your world really looks like, and it's
Yes.
very much felt that way. um in fact, they make so many references to NPR and Capitol Hill that I had to like keep resetting. This is not in DC. This
Me
is not in
too.
DC.
Me too.
So that was kind of funny. But I really liked her mother.
Mhm.
There's several storylines going on here. There's the main storyline of Shay and Donovan and this radio show that they are
I thought his
pretending
name
to
was
be.
Dominic.
Dominic, I'm so sorry. Donovan is in my head. But this
Okay.
that Dominic and Shay are going through with this story that they've created for this show that they're hosting that's actually gaining popularity. Then we
Yes.
have the side story of grief. On several different levels, we have Shay grieving her father, and then we have her mother who has lost a husband and even in her grief has found the ability to move forward. We
Forward.
have Dominic dealing with the grief of having this relationship that ended after he went above and beyond what any adult would do in a relationship. And so there's a certain level of grief on Shay's part of having this life that doesn't include anyone. I mean, she ends up, adopting Steve the dog because,
Steve
she
Rogers Goldstein.
Steve Rogers the
Say his
dog.
whole name, please.
Sorry, my bad, Steve
Put respect
Rogers.
on it. Put
I'm
respect
sorry,
on
my
his
bad.
name.
Little Steve Rogers. She adopts this
Goldstein.
dog because she's lonely. She's bought a house and she's
Mhm.
lonely. And so there are like very many levels of grief in this book
Mhm.
and in this character she's still after, we're talking 14 years. And she's very much still not in the day to day grief of grieving her father, but in the day to day grief of being someone who feels like something is missing
Mhm.
in her life. But
Yeah,
so,
I would agree. I
yeah.
the other grief, and so this book, and I'll just say this: this book could be could be triggering for some people
Oh, yeah, I
because
hadn't thought
the
about that.
level of grief
Hmm.
in this
Hmm.
book, it permeates on many levels. because even in the workplace, oh, we got a comment from Jackie. Dom was grieving the loss of his first and only girlfriend. I agree. And I was going to say that. And not only are they grieving physically from losing who I would call that person in their life. For Shay, it was her father. She was a daddy's girl. And
Yeah.
so her dad was that person. So
Yeah.
she lost that person.
Good
And
person. And we got
yeah,
that. Hmm.
yes. And then Dominic, who had never been in a relationship before, loses that person. But then you take their careers, and the blinders have come off for Shay in that she's not the wonder kid anymore. And so she's losing that position that she thought she would have in this
Hmm.
company.
Hmm.
And then
Hmm.
for Dominic, he's losing that drive that he thought, I'm going to be a real reporter.
Or the
You
ideology behind what he does.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I'm going to
Yeah.
be a real reporter. Like, I'm not going to be caving for ratings and, and for fundraisers. And their boss, like, tosses that on his ear and, like, look, we are losing money. Some of you all are going to lose your jobs. Some of this programming is not as fresh. And
Hmm.
you got low rating, Shay, on the
Hmm.
Puget Sound that you love, where you're talking about pets
Hmm.
and dog therapy, which is very valuable. I have a pet at
It's
home, and I
very
want,
valuable.
yes, and I want her to be on her best behavior, but I
She's
realize
slightly
everybody
on
don't
her
want to
best
pay for the.
behavior.
Okay, Michelle's watching my cat, y'all. I'm in San Diego. I don't know if I said that,
She's slightly
but
on best behavior.
yes, but I agree. So there's a lot of loss going on in this book,
Hmm.
and Shay has been she hasn't let go of the kid who lost her dad.
Who used to host
Oh,
radio shows in the kitchen.
yes, she hasn't let go of that fully.
But can we jump forward a little bit?
Yes,
So we have these two people hosting this radio show together, and people are speculating about their relationship. People are asking inappropriate questions on Twitter. She was so excited when she got 2,000 followers on Twitter because of their show. She went from
that happened
200
in a
to
day. I
2
would be proud too,
2,000.
y'all. Follow us on Twitter
Right.
right now. As a matter of fact,
On you, Twitter. I
Sierra
like
underscore
Twitter.
London. Yeah.
Twitter like that. Dumpster fire. That's where you want to start a fight. You want to blow up somebody's life. Go to Twitter. But
You can do that on any platform.
but that being said, we have this situation where we have this relationship that's created for this radio show.
Mhm.
This relationship is actually being pushed forward by the bosses, misogynist Kent especially. I'm going to put
Yes.
that out there because we're going to talk about misogynist Kent in a minute.
Yes.
And so misogynist Kent is pushing the story forward for them to really be in there, to the point where he wants them to gel, because they kind of get thrown off course during a radio show where somebody asks a question about whether or not their relationship is real, and they get sent away for the weekend to a cabin
Yeah.
or something, and
Yeah.
stuff happens. Like,
Yes.
stuff really happens. We have
Yeah.
these two people who are supposed to be fake broken up, end up playing, and it's very real.
Yes. And I thought the interest, oh, I'm sorry,
That was
Michelle.
hot, girl.
It was. So I could tell you, if you like beautifully written intimate scenes, it's in this book more than once. I mean, they are absolutely beautiful. I had my earbuds in listening
They're
to it, and
hot.
I was kind of falling asleep. And then I said, "What the what?" And I woke right up. I was like, "That's good right there."
And the
That's
first time wasn't even like the full grown show.
I know. I'm like, that's high quality H2O right there. So
Yes. It was like, I won't lie, I was sitting there like you're reading, and you ever have that moment where you have to stop reading to make sure nobody else sees that you're reading what you're reading? That was the moment when I read that first scene when they get sent away. And so these two people who are pretending to be exes are now hotter
yes,
than hot. Like,
yes. But I must say, like, you could see the connection between them because they pay attention to one another.
yes,
They
yes, they're
really
very
do a
good
good
at that.
job of paying attention to one another, and it comes across in the banter. between them. Even
Good
with that
banter.
first,
Good
yes, in that
banter.
first episode, the dialogue is brilliantly written in this book. And Jackie said, the cabin is my favorite part of the book. Oh, yeah. I'm like, while they're away, it's hot. And it comes back. And these two, let me get to the romance. So these two make the decision that they're going to be casual, that they're going to casually enjoy one another's physical
Because that
attributes.
works.
Yeah. Now, y'all have heard us talking about these two folks for 30 minutes. Y'all know both of them can't do casual. Like, it doesn't even suit their personality. So, Michelle, why do you think they agreed to it?
Because they're both young and dumb. I mean, let's be honest about this. Only young and dumb would say, hey, so we're supposed to be faking a relationship. Let's fake this relationship that should be over by having sex.
Yes.
Because that'll make us look more like enemies. Like, what were you thinking? Like
I
this
know.
there's so many ways this could go so wrong. But but they go, and you know what? They're hot. Let's be honest. This
Yes.
couple is very hot together.
Yeah.
Now, I know we're not supposed to give a lot away, but I'm going to say this jumping ahead. This book had one of the best dark moments I have read in a minute.
Yes.
Like, you know how you say you want the good dark moment to be where literally it feels like
Yes.
somebody's life is blowing up? Rachel, girl, you hit the
Yeah.
nail on the head. You
Yeah.
threw the bomb right into the middle of it. That explosion was so good because
Yes.
for a couple this hot to have a dark moment this dark in a way where I think I stopped to text you. I was like, best dark moment I have read in a minute.
Yes. So I'll have to tell you this. So these two crazy people make this decision um, to be in this casual relationship. This
This
casual
very,
relationship
very
that's burning
intimate
up your
casual.
audio book, your ebook reader, and I mean burning it out.
Turn the
And
volume down on the car if you're listening on a drive because
yes,
the
it
people in
is
the next
very
car are
hot.
hearing you. That's how hot this
Yes,
scene is.
yes. I was like, Dominic got mad game. How he get that from that one girl? Anyway, I would love to
He
meet
had
her
time to
too.
practice. She must not have been that hurt because he
he
had
got
time to practice.
he got mad game.
Yeah,
And
girl, Shay was thrown. She was like, "What?
me too.
What just happened here?" And then
Uh,
wait, what was his line to get her back in his bed for real? He's
I
like,
was
"Can we
dancing
exchange?"
with
He's like, "Can we exchange our charging cords?" I think he said, "We accidentally mixed up our charging cords this weekend. Could you come over so we can exchange them?" I'm like, "That's a hell of a charge.
yes.
That's a whole hell of a charge."
He's
Wow.
hilarious. Jackie, and so Jackie said it best. So there's a scene where Dominic un, really unbeknownst to him, because when these two folks get on the radio and say that they are exes, and they're both loners, of course their private lives start blowing up because her friends and family are like, why didn't I
Wait.
know about Shay? Why didn't I
Mm-hmm.
know about Dominic? Now
Mm-hmm.
that you all are broken up, we want to meet, like their families want to meet the other. They want to know more about this. And
Yeah.
Jackie said Shay wants to experience being someone's one and only. She
Yeah.
does, because
Mm-hmm.
that's what she had with her father,
Yep,
which
she's
I
the
thought
only
was,
daughter. Even the mother
yes,
admits that at
that
some
she
point
was
being
jealous.
jealous of their relationship. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It's very interesting how that played out as well. I'm not going to give y'all too much more on that.
Yeah, we can't
So,
give too much away because there's a lot that happens in the book
yes,
that is like sparkling in a
very
way
much so.
that you're like holding your head like, girl, how
I
did you
know.
end up here?
Yeah, train
Um,
wreck.
yes.
Yeah.
So
So let's go to
now I gotta pull out my notes, girl, because we're about to get into it. Let me
yes.
pull out some notes on this bad boy because
So let's go to Daniel's house. Okay, I'm girl. Who is Daniel? Dominic. Let's go to
Dominic.
let's go to Daniel's house. So,
We're having dinner with the Yuns.
okay, Daniel might have been somebody I dated. So, okay, so let's go to Dominic's house.
Hey, Mr.
So let's
Awesome around, girl. Be careful.
so let's go to Dominic's house. So we get to Dominic's house and we meet his mother and we meet his father. So we meet Margot
They're
and we
very
meet Dad.
interesting
And
people.
guess what? They own and
Antique
antique
shop.
shop. And once again, I thought this was a wonderful parallel of not letting go, of holding on.
Oh wow, I
I
hadn't
could
even
see
thought
that
about that.
parallel in
Mm-hmm.
Shay's life. So here
Yeah.
it is, you meet this new man,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and his parents own an antique shop, and the house is a tribute to all things from the past.
Oh yes.
And
Beautiful things from the past.
past. And Shay loves it. And I thought it was so interesting that you have this 29-year-old who values all these vintage things,
Yes. And she can't
holding
and
on
she
to relics
mentions it several times how much she finds that house so
several times.
beautiful.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Several times she mentions how beautiful these relics from the past
Mm-hmm.
are.
Yeah.
And so she meets his folks, and she has this sense, going back to what Jackie said in the comment, that I want to be a part of this. And I knew it was going to be a turning point. Even before they left the house, I was like, uh-oh, we in trouble.
She's attached. She
She's in
tells you
trouble.
her biggest problem and fear is that she gets very quickly attached to the other person before they feel the same way. She's the person that wants to say I love you first.
Yes.
And it
And
is her
she does.
weakness, and it's her strength and her weakness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is. I agree. She is that woman who realizes how she feels about a person, and
Mhm.
she wants to share that. She wants to
Yeah.
be authentic
Yeah, poor
in
thing.
her love for another
Poor
person.
thing.
I love that about her, but
Mm.
it also makes her very vulnerable.
Yes, it
Very
does. It
vulnerable.
does. So now on the same train, can we talk about her best friend Amina? So um Shay has a best friend that she's had since high school, I guess, named
Mhm.
Amina, and Amina works in Seattle in executive recruiting, and Amina hates it. So Amina announces that she has applied for a job as an executive recruit as a recruiter or something working for a natural agency in Virginia. And I understand that Seattle is expensive, but I thought it was hilarious. They must not have been talking about Northern Virginia when they talked about how inexpensive it was. I'm like, really? How expensive is Seattle if you think that Northern Virginia is cheap? But off off from that, Amina is interviewing for a job, and she's really excited about this job. She is
Mhm.
so excited that she's talking very liberally about how much she hates Seattle, about how much she
Mhm.
can't wait to get away. And the one thing we'll give away in this story is the fact that on the night of her going away party, they have a fight. They have
Mhm.
a blow up
Her shame.
where Amina is pretty much talking about how much she hates Seattle, how she can't wait to leave. And then she turns in a way I know you probably don't feel the same way, but I felt she turned on Shay, and she says to Shay, "You've just been holding on to this relationship, with your father, and this job is only because of him. And I lost out on a job because of you. And this is all new to Shay." She finds out that her friend got a job offer 4 years earlier and didn't take it. And she uses Shay as the excuse for why she didn't take it. I want to know what you thought about that moment when she's like, well, I could have taken that job and I didn't because you were still a mess.
Yeah, that was so. I'll just say, I did not expect that to happen at
No.
Shay's. It was supposed to be a celebration of her getting this
Mm-hmm.
job that she wants on the opposite coast. But
Yeah.
I can tell you that Shay has been struggling with everyone moving forward. She's struggling
Mm-hmm.
with the job moving forward and leaving her show behind. She's struggling with her mother being in this new relationship and actually getting engaged pretty much for the
Mm-hmm.
second time, and
And
she
having a new
hasn't found,
family.
yeah, and hasn't found that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's struggling with her best friend being excited about leaving a place that she really didn't want to be.
Yeah.
So
But what did you think of
Shay,
that moment when it blew up?
yes, but Shay, I felt like she needed someone to be honest with her about where she was in her life, um to make sure. Like she did need to make decisions based on, Shay, what do you want? Not something that you're trying to fulfill from your 18-year-old self that you feel like you may not have had the chance to do. Um, but in no way did I feel it was Shay's fault that Amina made the decision, because Shay was so wounded at the time, that I should stay here because you don't have anyone else. But I do understand that having someone in your life that's emotionally needy like that really struggles to let go, can make you feel that way. And so I think they're both in a very difficult position, because as much as Amina is happy, Shay is also thinking about all she's lost. And the more Amina talks about, I won't miss this high rent that I'm paying, and I won't miss this, and I won't miss that. Very much Shay is going to miss her, because she's kind of her significant other in some ways. Her best friend is like her significant other.
So I found that very interesting
Mm-hmm.
and kind of like in a way of like giving like a little, inch to the our listeners. I have been in this area for many years.
Mm-hmm.
And Siera has moved in and out of this area for several years. So we've been those friends who like spend a lot of time together and,
Yes.
and then, one of us moves away. Her.
Yeah,
I
dearly
didn't hear.
me.
She
I
moved.
get it. I get
This
it.
is
And I'm in
yeah,
San Diego this week, and she got the
yes.
cat.
So I understand that relationship of a
Yeah.
friendship that's constantly put in like in one way we do that long distance, short distance friendship thing. We've done it
Several.
successfully for many
Ye-
years.
Yes.
But I understood Shay's feeling of missing her friend. I think I've even
Mm,
expressed it myself in our relationship where I say something to the effect of, well, I have to acknowledge that my life is changing because I don't have you here the same way that I had you here before. And
mm-hmm.
so it's that sense of like you're rearranging the plates on the table of your own life. So I understood Shay's feelings. What I didn't understand and what really kind of enraged me was
Mm-hmm.
this sense of Amina blaming Shay for
Yeah.
not moving on herself. It's almost as if Amina needed an excuse to explain why she never went after what
Yes.
she wanted to do. And so she blames the person who never asked her to stay.
Mm-hmm.
The same way that Shay is having to deal with the fact that Amina is moving
Mm-hmm.
now, she would have dealt with it before. And for Amina to say, well, you're the reason that I didn't go. I mean, even Amina's boyfriend TJ is like, girl, stop, girl,
Yes.
don't go no further.
Yes.
Stop.
Okay. All right. So I'm glad you said that, because once again, for me, this author has taken a role that traditionally women have held, meaning
Yes.
don't say that.
Don't say
Please
that.
don't say that. You getting ready to blow up this coffee shop or wherever they were, whatever restaurant they were at. But again, she used a male character to say, Amina, don't. Amina, stop.
Stop.
And
And she's
then
like, she needs to hear
yes.
this.
And so it's a dual revelation, because one, you find out that Amina, for whatever reason,
Has
has
hated being in
attached,
Seattle.
yeah, has attached to you, the best friend, that she did not get something, that she sacrificed something for you. And
Yes.
two, you find out that Amina for Amina, you are not her person, because she's discussed this with this new man in her life, something that you never
Never
knew.
knew.
So
Yes.
it's again, this grieving process is repeated in her friendship. And so it goes back to what I was saying earlier. This book can be very triggering,
Mm-hmm.
because there's loss on multiple levels. And
Mm-hmm.
it's communicated through several of the characters and their relationships, not just with each other, but in their individual lives as well, separate from the dynamic of all of them coming together.
So I'm gonna
So
tell you, I read this as a
okay.
betrayal. It was
Okay.
a betrayal to me. The whole idea that
Okay.
she had attached this loss of an opportunity to her best friend. She never
Mhm.
told her best friend she was up for the job. She tells the boyfriend. And then when she does tell her, she throws it in her face, not because, and this is the part that really got me, not because Shay asked her to stay, because Shay has never done that. And the entire
That is
time she's
true.
like, I'm happy for you. I'm sad you're leaving, but I'm
That is
happy
true.
for you. So she never says, please stay. She never says, why do you want to do that? She never says any of those things. She
Mhm.
acknowledges when her best friend tells her, look, I'm going after something I've always wanted to go after. And I thought that the way that Amina threw that in her face, I thought it was a
Mhm.
betrayal in the sense that this entire time, Shay has seen her as the person who is always on her side and telling her the
In my
truth.
corner.
And then you have this betrayal, and it's almost like the first of, it's a warm up to the next betrayal, and there were a couple of them. And I
Yes.
consider the relationship with Kent a betrayal
Mhm.
because Kent is a misogynist bastard. He's the
Yeah.
kind of guy that where if there are 10 men in a meeting and 2 women, he looks at those 2 women, no matter what their hierarchy in the room is, and says, which one of you is going to take notes? Which one of you is
And
going to get coffee? Like,
coffee.
he's
Yes.
a piece of crap. I will not, I mean,
He
granted,
is.
in every woman has had a Kent in her career that she has dealt with.
Probably.
If
Mhm.
she's lucky he wasn't her boss, but we've dealt with that person. And so I felt that his character, the way he treats her, a complete betrayal. And without telling too much, at one point he does something that literally puts her in harm's way.
From a career standpoint,
Yes, from a career standpoint he puts her in
it's
harm's way.
it's career
He
damaging.
Yes, he does damage, and he doesn't care that he's
Mhm.
done damage. It's
Yes,
because we don't want to give too much of the book away, because you
that
should
is
read it
true.
and see it, because you need to see this unfold the way it unfolds, because the way that it unfolds, even I had that moment where I sat back in my seat like,
I agree. So this is where I feel like the author did a great job of bringing some really realistic scenarios to this book. So when you
yes,
talk about workplace dynamics, women in the workplace, gender in the workplace, um,
relationships in the
yes,
workplace,
relationships in the workplace, you have a woman who has been on the job for 10 years
and she has less
and
credibility than the guy who's been there for months.
months. That is true. And in the end, as you move towards the climax of the book and the resolution, you see that play out in a very realistic way.
She
And that's
takes
all
the
I'm going to
brunt
say
of
about
it.
that. So
Yes,
when things go wrong, the women in this book suffer the majority of the fallout. And
now,
we often see that in the workplace.
now you know it wouldn't be Woman on Words if I didn't tell a story, so I'm gonna tell a story.
Okay.
Here's my
Okay.
story. I will never forget. If you ever have a situation where you see where there's a perceived relationship between a man and a woman in the workplace, and the woman is older and the man is younger, there's always this sense of what is she doing? But you turn that around and it's not treated the same way. So I thought it was very interesting in this story that in this, I mean, even without there being a even
Hmm.
without there being a real relationship, there was this sense of the boss still stacking the hierarchy for the responsibility of decisions that are made, like the good decisions were all accounted to Dominic, and any decisions that didn't go the right way were all accounted to Shay. And it was
Hmm.
very interesting to see the way that's played out. Like nobody held anything that happened against him, not really.
Right.
And I
I
thought it was
agree.
very interesting because they're keeping a lot of secrets from a lot of people. And
Hmm.
it seems like people are very willing throughout the book, in everything that's happening. It's very easy to blame Shay. Her best friend blames her. And then it's
Hmm.
very easy to reward Dominic. And that was
Hmm.
very interesting to see that play out. The author was brilliant in the way that she played that out. She played
Hmm.
it out in ways that you don't even think about until we're getting through to the end of
Right.
the story. And you're like, oh, well, how did that happen? Like, you
Yes,
know,
I agree.
yeah, yeah.
The twist at the end of this book, y'all, will have you. I mean, if I have it on my iPad, so I didn't throw it because these are very expensive. But if it was my Kindle e-reader, I would have threw it across the room because but not my iPad. It was my Kindle Fire. Whoop.
That's
But
serious. Wow. Boom. Okay.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, it is. I'll just say this: when the truth is uncovered, okay, when the truth is uncovered that these two were not in a relationship and that they have been lying to the public, the fallout is public and live and explosive. And the character who chose to stand up and try and explain is the one that's demonized.
Okay. So let's just say in that moment, and this is the way it always goes down, in the moment when the stress is high and everything is going to shit, excuse my language, the professional takes the forefront. Like
Yes.
you get to see what, you know, education, wonderful, but you get to see the value of experience. You get to see
Yes.
someone actually realize, okay, this ship is sinking and somebody needs to right the boat. And you get to see the way that the two of them handle this situation. We see where a woman who has had 10 years of experience in a job says, okay, we don't have
Absolutely.
time to scream. I've got to stand up and make it, like, a decision has to be made in that moment. And I thought that was very, very close to real life
Mm.
in the way that she had to like take the brunt. But I'm gonna say this: Shay is a very quiet character. She's very much a lot of her internal thoughts are very much hinging on this sense of her being unsure, even after a long
Yes.
time. When Shay found her voice, I'm not gonna lie, I was in the background yelling like, "It's about time for you to
Yeah.
find your voice." I was so ready for her to take the stage and say the things
I
that
was
needed to
too.
be said.
Yeah. So I
Yes.
can tell you I was too. I struggled with Shay's character actually from the beginning. I
Yes.
think I gave you a phone call and
I
I said
got
I don't
them
like
saying,
her.
I was getting text messages like, I
Yeah, I
don't know
like.
how I feel about this girl.
Yes, but and I grew to appreciate what she brought to the table. But I did struggle with this character because she's a woman who's 10 years on the job and she's so unsure of herself,
Mhm.
and it's so stereotypical of how we're portrayed in the workplace. Like it don't matter how much experience a woman has, she's still not confident and she's unsure. And when you meet Shay, she's very much that character. And honestly, um, I'm not the best with that, with those particular character traits. I'm not the best with that.
Okay, that's
And
good.
so,
To say it
I,
that way.
yes, I really struggled with Shay. So I was thrilled
But I
when she found her voice and she did not back down.
So I think Shay is very much a representative, and I felt like the author really dug in there that Shay is a representative of how women kind of like reform themselves in the workplace so as not to make too much noise because you know that you're going to get the worst of it. And I feel like in a lot of ways she contorted herself to fit a lot of the roles that were requested of her, even knowing that in the end it would end up being rougher on her, whatever happened, because that's the way it is. I mean,
Right.
let's be honest, if something blows up between a man and a woman, the world will forgive the man first.
Yeah.
They're going to tell
Yeah.
you that they won't, but
Right.
they will. They will say, "Oh,
Yes.
it's, he a bad guy, but he wasn't a horrible guy." And they'll say,
Yes.
"She should have known better." I mean, I do
Yeah.
it myself. But
Yes.
at the same time, there's that sense of feeling um like she just pretty much had contorted herself to fit the role because she knows that she's not going to get the good end of it. Because when you're dealing with a Kent, you almost have to, because if you dealt with a Kent another way, there will be another woman working there.
Yeah.
It's
And so this
amazing that
is
in these books
interesting.
more Kents don't get murdered, because
Yeah.
honestly, he would have deserved it.
And so this is where I'm going to go back to what Amina said. I know it's probably going to upset you, but her best friend actually said, like, maybe in her own way, maybe you should question more of your decisions and where you are right now in your career. Because guess what? I agree with you, Michelle, that this character contorted herself to fit into a mold she really didn't want to be in. And guess what? Either way, even sacrificing all those things, her integrity, her position, where she wanted to be, where she wanted to be, she still lost. Like, you do all these things to compromise yourself, and guess what? The kids of the world are going to still do the same thing to you.
Yeah.
So find your place in the world.
Yeah.
That's what
I
came
struggled
through
with
to
that.
me in this
Yeah.
book, is like, you're doing all these things to compromise yourself for a place that ultimately it's not where you want to be. And again, this is a character who has been holding on to death, to things that are dead, for years, for a decade. She's been holding on to things that are dead, that you cannot breathe life into.
Yeah. I think that,
And honestly, it was someone blowing up her life that forced her to let go. I don't know if Shay
yeah.
would have let go otherwise. It was someone else blowing up her life that forced her to move forward to what she ultimately really wanted.
Yeah, and even that, I have, like, so many questions. Like, I'm a
Mhm.
huge podcast listener, and so I understand the value of a good podcast and
Mhm.
the ability to monetize a really popular podcast. Um, and I thought it was interesting because they even mentioned a podcast that I listened to in one of the discussions and in relation to their, podcast. But, it was just really interesting to me that Shay's character is like a lot of the women, like there's Paloma. And I
Mhm.
mean, the women in this story kind of take the hits, but I suspect that it's very much, I'll say this. I thought that Rachel Lynn Solomon stuck very close to what it really looks like. It felt so
In the workplace.
real. It did. It felt like
It
we'd
did.
met these people before. We've seen this character get dunked, before. We've seen the blow up of this situation before, the
Mhm.
same, I mean, not in the same way, but we've seen the impact. That it felt like it was the same impact. I thought she hit the mark 100% on telling a
Yes.
story that felt extremely real. You go, Rachel, because I
Yeah.
believed you. If you had told me I took this story straight out of something that really happened and this was true crime,
Yes.
because it was a crime what happened to our girl, I would say yes. And I will say this too. Dominic's hot. Dominic's sexy. Dominic is attractive in a
Dominic would
lot
be
of ways.
left if it was
But
me.
Dominic is a jerk on a serious level. And I'm going to tell you this, and I rarely ever say this, but I was having a couple of doubts about our boy Dominic while I'm reading the story, because his in his his inexperience in relationships showed.
Oh
And
my goodness. So I'm
it
gonna just tell you
showed.
something.
Don't give anything
There,
away.
there is no substitute for experience. And what this author did was show the value of
Of
maturity.
experience and
Of
maturity.
maturity. It's different
Yes.
because you referred to Dominic as being almost juvenile, infantile. But what you see in Shay is a woman who has learned from experience. And when she has the opportunity to rise to the occasion, she does it even if she has to stand by her damn self. And that's what I loved about Shay
Yes.
in the end. She
Yeah.
learned
Yeah.
that there is no value in silencing your own voice, that the
Yeah.
cost is too high.
It's a yeah.
It
Yeah.
is too high to
Yeah.
pay. And she also learned, as much as you see a character the whole book who's always leaning on someone. She's trying to lean on her best friend. She's trying to hold on to the dad. She's trying to hold on to the old relationship her and her mom had. She's trying to hold on to Amina. She's trying to hold on to the Wonder Kid position from when she was 19.
Yeah, that hurts her
But
a
when
lot.
it but when it really comes down to it, what she learned is you
Stand on your
have
own 2
to
feet.
stand on
Mhm.
your own. I
Mhm.
don't care if nobody is standing with you. you must stand. And
Mhm.
and guess what? No one can do that for you. I don't care how much they love you. I don't care if everybody you know and love is standing right there in the background. You must do it for yourself.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. You got to do it for yourself. You got to stand up for yourself. And she had to do that, which was, I felt for her. Truly, truly felt for her.
Not letting me refresh. Oh no. This is terrible.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Look, LaDonna said it sounded interesting.
Yeah, it did. Right until it kicked us off.
I know.
Oh, that's awful. But we're still online.
Well, let's see. What
Okay, I'm
is
gonna try to get back into the studio.
all right? Let's see here. Okay, folks, I am not sure what happened to the internet. Michelle is an echo. I'm not sure what that is, Michelle. Is that better? Okay, so I can't hear. Okay, Jackie said she was so proud of our character. So, guess
Mm,
what? We're at the end of our show. Jackie, I
yeah,
was ultimately proud of her too. It took her a long time getting there. I felt like she took me on an emotional roller coaster.
yeah.
Um,
I still
I
feel
really
for her
did.
even after finishing the book now. I'm still kind of at that place where I'm like,
Yeah, it was a
Shay,
real
Shay,
emotional journey.
Shay. Like I'm
Yeah,
hoping good things for this character, and I am, yeah, yeah. I mean, like I'm hoping good things for it's a romance, so I'm hoping good things for their relationship, and I'm hoping
yes.
good things for this character. And I still have not forgiven Amina. I know you like her, but I'm still holding a little bit of hard feelings. I like to hold a grudge.
Yes, and I'm not saying that I like Amina. I I do not think she was right in
Yeah.
what she projected onto her best friend.
And the
But
way
I
she did it
yes, but I do feel like the conversation
should have
about
happened.
where Shay was and not moving forward needed to happen. And I feel like, as her best friend, probably the person closest to her, before Dominic came along, somebody needed to say it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I feel like too many times we allow one another to linger in places that we shouldn't be. Waiting on something that's not going to come. What Shay wanted to happen on that job was not going to happen for her. The connection that she had with her father is beautiful, but you can't get it back. You have the memories of it to carry you forward, kind of like the antiques that, you know, Dominic's parents had in the house. Like, there's remnants of it
Yeah.
that you can always look back with fondness, but
Mm.
that person is gone and they are
Yeah.
not coming back.
Yes. But we all know grief is different for every person, and I couldn't even pretend to understand what it must feel for this. It would have felt like for this girl who was literally just about to embark on adulthood when
Mhm,
her father left her life,
mhm,
and the things that she held close to her, because she speaks very beautifully about her dad, even when, like, they do an episode of the show on grief,
mhm,
and she speaks so lovingly and beautifully about her dad that I can understand why it still carries a heavy weight. Mom has moved forward, and I couldn't help but wonder, maybe if Shay had a healthy relationship, if she might have moved forward as well, because then she would have had the background of the understanding that relationships grow and change, but she didn't have anybody like that in her life. So it
mhm.
completely changed the way that their
Right,
relationship was carrying itself.
right. But she also wasn't open to that when the book
Not
opened.
yet. Yes,
Yeah,
not
she
yet.
wasn't open to it. And
Yeah.
so, um, like, it's not one because of the other.
Yeah.
Like, we all have a role to play in where we are in our lives. And whatever our lives look like, a part of it comes from the decisions that we make.
I did
And
enjoy watching them grow together, though. I enjoyed watching them grow into each other. Like this couple, I thought that there's a lot of growth that happened for Shay in this relationship
yes,
because of watching the way that they grew together and had to get, like, forced to get to know each other in ways that some couples take years to learn, and they
that
had
is true.
to learn it very quickly. And that was very interesting and quite entertaining,
Hmm.
along with being hot. It was very
Yes,
entertaining watching this couple kind of like create this false narrative around their relationship and then have to figure out what the real version of that would have actually looked like.
Yes, I totally
Um,
agree. And I can
yeah.
also see, I thought the author did a really great job. And I'm going to close out on this, y'all, because
Oh
I
yeah.
know we're past our time, even though the internet, it went dark for Michelle and I, for both of us. But I will say that the author did a great job of crafting a scenario, a
Cheers to you,
romance
Rachel Lynn Solomon. Cheers to
for
you.
20-year-olds. I can't say that this is the type of relationship I would want as a 50-year-old woman. I can't
I
say
will
that
hope not.
well, I'm just saying that I'm not sure the hero would have the same appeal
No,
uh,
no, of course not.
for a woman that was older, but these folks are both in their 20s.
Right, right.
And
And he would have
so,
grown by then as well.
yeah, so
Hell,
the
he's about to
thing,
grow leaps and bounds in just the next 2 years of his life. A 24-year-old man versus a 26-year-old man is completely
yeah.
different. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought she did a really good job of sometimes, we see characters and you go, whoa, they are really experienced for their age, or they come across really mature. Or, but we all remember our 20-year-old selves and we did not have it together. And there was a lot that we didn't know, but we thought we did.
Oh,
We thought we did. And we made mistakes based on
Michelle.
what we thought we knew,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it's funny because I had a conversation with a 20-year-old yesterday, and she was talking about, I know what I'm talking about based on life experience. And we
Sure,
were talking
darling.
and we were talking about
You know a
diversity
lot about what
and
you don't
race
know.
and what and the journey for various groups of people. And it was just interesting listening to her talk
Hmm.
about
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
her life experience, because she does have life experience, but it's not the
Not
life
enough.
experience of you know, a 50-year-old or 70-year-old or 80-year-old. So
Hmm.
there's only so much authority you can bring to that conversation.
Amen. But
Yeah,
they don't
but
know yet.
uh-oh, there you go. There you go. Not light
Oh,
back
did
on.
you
Thank you.
lose me?
No, my
I'm
babe came
sorry.
up to play. But so yeah, it was very interesting. So again, we read The X Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon. And it
And it was
was
very good.
and it was very good. Jackie couldn't be on the shoulders today, but she's in the comments, and she also said that she was very proud of this heroine when the story ended, as was
Yeah, her
I.
journey.
Yes, and sounds like Michelle really liked Shay as well and identify with her even from
I
a career
understood
choice.
her in a certain
And
level.
yes, and
Girl,
some of the
been there,
different
done that.
space. Yeah. So, Michelle, what are we reading for December?
Okay, so I'm gonna have to ask your forgiveness. My internet is acting crazy, but our plan for December is Christmas time. So join us next month. I'm gonna try to convince Sierra to put on her best Christmas pajamas so that we can
Okay.
have our show and pull up her mug of hot cocoa because
Okay.
we're gonna take a
I don't have
little
any
bit of a
Christmas pajamas,
change.
but go on.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
we may have to fix that. We're gonna go a
Okay.
little bit out of our usual comfort zone of reading a novel, and we're gonna instead read an anthology called "Meet Me Under the Mistletoe," and it includes several authors, including M. Robinson, Claire Contreras,
Yeah.
Pam Godwin, Katie Robert, Jenica Snow, Sky Warren, Amelia Wild, Louise, M. O'Keefe, Theodora Taylor, Sam Mariano, Sienna Snow, uh, Guyana Darling. Please forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Alta Hensley and Jewel West. So we are going to be reading Meet Me Under the Mistletoe. And it is an anthology, a holiday anthology. It sounds really, really hot. Whew, might need to bring
It
cold
does.
drinks instead of hot cocoa.
Let me
But
see here.
yeah, so
Hold
that is what we are reading next month. Join us. And when we're done, we're also gonna take the opportunity to talk a little bit about some of the other holiday books that we are reading this year. I'm gonna admit to having bought like 15. I'm not gonna get to read them all, but I'm gonna have to tell you about as many of them as I possibly can.
Yes, and just so you all know, we're going to be making some changes in 2022. We're going to be taking the show to Clubhouse. So if you are on Clubhouse, go ahead and start following Sierra London over there and Michelle. Well, look, I don't know if Michelle's got her set up yet, but follow us over on Clubhouse because we are going to be reaching out to more people, and hopefully, all the folks, in our international community will be able to join us on Clubhouse and join the discussion as well. So, until next month, third Sunday of the month, be awesome, be amazing, be wow. We'll see you then. Bye, everybody. Bye, Jackie. Bye, LaDonna. Thanks for joining us on the air.